What's up, everybody? Hope you're having a great day. So, RenderViz is a plugin used to show your animations. It's great for breakdowns, how you animated shapes frame by frame, motion paths. It renders nulls and all of the interface things that you don't normally see in renders. There are other plugins out there that do something similar. This is pretty different, and I'll show you why. So I have this car. Right here off the top, we have presets. So I'll just choose breakdown and click on render viz. It'll go through and draw a shape for every single path, rendering the bezier points and handles, motion paths, and any other of the interface things you want to show. So it gave me an actual layer with everything on it. And if I turn off the original artwork, you can see exactly what it drew. It'll go through and put a keyframe on every single frame that's rendered or that has animation. And then you can either just render it like it is or use these as tools to design other elements. So I'll just delete this and choose another. I got a few presets in here. There's got to click on it. This one is a blueprint, which kind of gives you just a basic line drawing blueprint, but the points are still visible. I'll delete that one. And I'm going to come down here and say hide original layer. So next time I run it, it'll hide the original artwork. So I'll click on render viz again. And here you see it's another line drawing style, but everything in the back is hidden. So it's applying a fill to every single shape that was drawn. And in this case, it's black on white. So I'll delete that one. And X-ray is actually really cool. It will, gotta click it. It will fill every shape, but then also change the adjustment layer of the fill type. So in this case, it is set to linear dodge, and this occlude overlapping shapes is checked on. So any of the shapes with a fill will get linear dodge applied, and you could choose any of these other ones. So again, I'll just delete this, and Spirograph is a bit crazy. I'll save that one for later. But over here, you have a ton of style options. You can change the shape. So if you want circles or squares, you can change that here. I like the points to be squares because that's kind of how After Effects does it by default. You see it's a square if you have Bezier handles on that. Those have little dots on the end. So that's kind of the default style. You can either turn on or off the fill and the stroke for each of these, and you can change the colors for each. So again, by default, if I click render viz, it draws a square for each of those Bezier points, and then the handles are this pink color. And you can control the size of each of these in the size category. So for points, they're square, it's set to 10. If you look at the layer that was created, let's make that bigger. Look at all these paths that it made over 100 paths in just that quick second. So these are all editable, and it just made a little square for each, and then a line. Even the Bezier handles, it drew a circle and a line for each of those. So there's a lot you can do with this. Again, full control, stroke thickness is over here. You can turn on motion paths, mask paths, and shape paths. So the shape paths, you kind of have to have that on by default. But if you don't want to see this blue line, you have to have that to be able to draw points. But if you don't want to see that, you can click on hide shape path and it'll turn that off and still draw all the other shapes. Okay, so here's the spirograph example. I have a 12-sided octagon, whatever that's called, 12agon. Okay, and I'll choose spirograph, render viz. And you can see here it drew a giant circle. So the points here are set to circle, 600, which is pretty big, and the stroke size is 1. And you can see exactly what it did. I'm gonna delete that, and this time I'm gonna click on a slider rig, which will create a null with controls. And then I will click on hide original layers and hide these shape paths. Oh, you can even give it a label for all the layers it's created. I'll just choose aqua for no reason. Okay, so I click render viz, and there it is. It created all of the shapes, and this null sitting on top is a parent, and it has the controls up here. It put an effect with linked expressions, and you can control the size and animate that. And then handle size, if you have Bezier, stroke width, it can show you that. It's, you can adjust this after the fact. The delete layers feature is very handy, but if you don't want to keep going back and forth, you can use the rig to adjust it after the fact. And null size, there's a slider for that if you want to change it. There's no null. There's the null that's the parent, but there was no null being drawn with RenderViz. One last feature I want to show you is that you can save your own presets. And what I did here was just a basic shape path on all of these strokes. And I made 3 different versions, one of red, one blue, one red, and one green. Set them all to add, and then just change the position slightly to create this RGB split effect. And then what you could do is come up here, save a preset for, say, okay, and then it'll be up here in your list. I'm just going to delete that. If you look closely, you can see the null, and I had some position keyframes on this. So it created this green layer with the null marker, and this dotted orange layer was the motion path that the null took. So this isn't a great example, but you can see how you can trace your motion paths to show exactly how your path moved. If you have some paper airplanes or something flying around, that's just a really cool way to show it too. Here's one last example. I have this animated car going back to the distance. I'll select all of these, including the null. Click on Render Viz, and it will trace each of these layers and create keyframes on all of them. And it even trims layers to the correct in and out points. You can skip any layers that are hidden or that have the eyeball turned off on the group in the contents. You can bake animated paths. You can bake the movement if it has expressions like with a bounce or wiggle or something. And then you can separate layers. So if you wanted the shape paths and the mask paths and everything, the Bezier handles to all be on separate layers, you could check that and it'll give you a different layer for each of those. That's RenderViz. I hope you like it. If you have any questions, please drop me a line. Bye.